A long time back, individuals who lived on the two banks of the Nile, along its northern course downstream, started to construct a progress whose radiation will keep on intriguing human existence. Furthermore, albeit the historical backdrop of the pharaohs conveys with its secrets that nobody has settled and knows science until now, their compositions, engravings and drawings that they left in their sanctuaries and burial places and were found throughout the years showed some data about them, a significant number of which stay just suppositions and presumptions. These are the memoirs of some of them. Ruler Setti I. His burial chamber was found in 1881 in Deir el Bahri, west of Luxor governorate, and as per researchers, he passed on in his 40s. He is the child of Lord Ramses I. His rule crossed no less than 21 years, interspersed by his initiative of military missions to lay out control abroad. His burial place is exceptionally unmistakable and is quite possibly of the most lovely illustrious burial chamber. His significant other is Sovereign Tuya. He has 3 children. Lord Ramses II. He Ramses the Senior, child of Setti I, was the 3rd pharaoh of the leaders of the 19 tradition, ruled 1279 to 1213 BC. And it is accepted that he took the high position in his late young years, and his rule stretched out for a time of over 67 years. Almost certainly, he passed on at 90 years old or 91 years. He is the most renowned and most remarkable pharaoh all through the rule of the Egyptian domain, and is otherwise called the Great-Granddad, the name given to him by his replacements and resulting rulers. He is the creator of the principal truce in history, and it was with the Hittites, whom his dad battled. The arrangement is recorded on the walls of the sanctuaries of Karnak. Ramses II fabricated a ton of sanctuaries, the most significant of which is the sanctuary of Abu Simbel. His main spouse was Sovereign Nefertari, and he constructed a sanctuary for her close to his sanctuary in Abu Simbel. He drove a few military undertakings to the Levant and re-established Egyptian command over Canaan. He likewise drove crusades south to Nubia, where 2 of his children went with him as noted recorded on the walls of the sanctuary of Beit el-Wali. After his demise, he was covered in a graveyard in the Valley of the Lords, and his body was subsequently moved to the regal sepulchre where it was found in 1881 and showed in the Egyptian exhibition hall prior to being moved today. Lord Merneptah, the 13th child of Ramses II, he rose the high position at a late age because of the long rule of his dad. He ruled exclusively for quite some time, and regardless of his fairly short rule, perhaps of the main curio, triumph painting, is because of his rule. The mummy of Merneptah was tracked down in 1898 in the burial chamber of Amenhotep II in Luxor. Lord Setti II. He is the 5th lord of the 19th line of the Advanced Express, the child of Merneptah and Istifrit II, and governed from 1203 BC.AD to 1197 BC.M. The mummy of Setti II was tracked down in 1898, in the burial chamber of Amenhotep II in Luxor. She was enclosed by many layers of cloth and kept her facial highlights well. His lofty position name was the mystery of the experience of Are step in Are, and that signifies strong are the appearances of Are, the anointed one of Are. He managed various serious interests, the most significant of which was the ascent of an opponent ruler named Amen Masha, likely his relative, and caught Thebes and Nubia in Upper Egypt during his 2nd to 4th long periods of rule. Ruler Saknenare II. Pharaoh Saknenare II, child of ruler Sanctenare I. He is one of the main rulers of Egypt, and the dad of Amos I. The dates of his rule are dubious, however it is accepted that he assumed control over the reign in 1560 BC.A.D. or on the other hand 1558 BC.M. Proof proposes that it was during his rule that the genuine battle to remove the Hyksos from Egypt started, freeing the nation of the unfamiliar burden that had been burdening its shoulders for an extensive stretch of time. The mummy of Lord Saknenare and his unpleasant final resting place were among the renowned disclosures that happened in 1880 in the sepulchre close to the sanctuary of Deir el Bahri. The gold in his final resting place was taken, however not totally. Ruler Thutmose I. He is the 3rd pharaoh during the 18th administration. He climbed the lofty position subsequent to surpassing 40, after the demise of Pharaoh Amenhotep I. During his rule, he was crusading profound into the Levant and Nubia, driving the boundaries of Egypt farther than any time in recent memory. He constructed a few sanctuaries in Egypt and fabricated himself a burial place in the Valley of the Lords. As per his memoir from the burial chamber of Ahmose ibn Abana, Thutmose went up the Nile and by took on in the conflict, killing the Nubian ruler. Ruler Thutmose II. He is the fourth pharaoh of the 18th administration of Old Egypt. The date of his rule alludes to 1493 to 1481 BC. His mummy was tracked down in a store in the Oceanic religious community over the funeral home sanctuary of Sovereign Hatshepsut, his better half. Ruler Thutmose III. He is the sixth pharaoh of the 18th administration. He is quite possibly of the most remarkable ruler ever, having established the principal Egyptian realm around then, which went on until around 1070 BC until the rule of Ramses I. Thutmose prepared on the war zones of Luxor. These phases of preparation provided him with an immovability of character and extraordinary military involvement with when Hatshepsut was administering. The military was perhaps of his most noticeable interest, and provided him with knights and chariots of battle, as during his rule the old Egyptians because of him dominated the production of darts and bolts. The sculptures of Thutmose III show us that he was a macho young fellow who had the characteristics of a warrior and a pioneer. Ruler Thutmose IV. He is the child of Amenhotep II and Sovereign Tuya, the eighth ruler in the 18th line. He ruled from 1401 to 1391 BC. His rule endured 9 years and 8 months, and he was covered after his passing in his burial place ready by the Valley of the Lords, which was found by Theodore Davis in 1908, and found a few household items and a conflict chariot. Concerning his mummy, it was found by Victor Lort in 1898, and demonstrates that he kicked the bucket at about the age of 30 years because of a disease since his body was meager. Ruler Amenhotep I. Amenhotep I, now and again composed Amnovis I, 1504 BC. He was the child of Ahmose I and the second pharaoh of the 18th administration. He controlled from 1525 BC. Until 1504 BC. After his dad removed the Hyksos from Egypt. The burial chamber of this ruler was tracked down in the Valley of the Lords, where he was covered in Dara Abu Naga in the most seasoned regal burial chamber in Thebes, yet his mummy was moved to a sepulchre in the Oceanic religious community around the 21st tradition. Sovereign T. Sovereign Ti or Ti is the little girl of Ea and Tuya, the 18th line. What's more, a spouse of ruler Amenhotep III. She brought forth Lord Amenhotep IV. He is known as Akhenaten. As per the books, the dad of Sovereign T was a landowner of non-imperial beginning and dwelled in Upper Egypt in the city of Akhmim, and her mom held a few strict posts and held various titles, the most noticeable of which was the vocalist of the goddess Hathor, Sovereign Mertimonius. The sovereign, otherwise called Amos Merit Ammonius, is the spouse of ruler Amenhotep, and her mummy was found inside her stone-cut burial chamber in the Deir el Bahri region in 1930. Sovereign Hatshepsut. Her name developed Ammonius Hatshepsut. She is the fifth in the arrangement of rulers of the 18th administration. A harsh battle for control of the public authority broke out among her and Thutmose III, somewhere in the range of 1504 and 1450 BC. She was his stepmother and sister simultaneously. Control ultimately tumbled to Thutmose III, and her allies were killed, yet antiquarians don't know how she passed on, with the probability that she was killed. She administered after the demise of her significant other, Lord Thutmose II, first as official for the youthful ruler Thutmose III, and afterward as sovereign and little girl of the god Ammonius. She is quite possibly of the most popular and persuasive sovereign who managed Egypt. It was seeking after a tranquil strategy with the Egyptian effective reaches in Palestine and Nubia and with its neighbors. Lord Amenhotep II. He is the seventh of the 18 lords of the tradition, the child of ruler Thutmose III by his significant other sovereign Merit Are Hatshepsut, who shows up with him in scenes on the walls of his burial chamber. It is accepted that he governed in the period from 1427 to 1401 BC. He was enthusiastic about sports, and his mummy demonstrates that he was macho. Bows and arrows was his #1 leisure activity, and a rock plaque was tracked down in the wrench depicting his expertise in utilizing a bow, as he had over his bolts to hit a copper target 6 centimeters thick for 14 successive times. Lord Amenhotep III. Amenhotep III is the 10th pharaoh of the 18th line. He is said to have administered Egypt either in the period between 1391 BC.M. 1353 BC.M. or 1388 BC.M. 1351 BC.M. Amenhotep fabricated a sanctuary in Thebes, however it was totally obliterated from that point forward. He likewise constructed a few sanctuaries in Thebes, and in Karnak he raised a sanctuary to the god Montu, the divine force of war, who was the master of the Theban region, and afterwards supplanted by the god Amon, and one more sanctuary to the goddess Mut, the spouse of the god Amonare. Amenhotep III passed on subsequent to administering for a long time at 50 years old, and almost certainly, his demise is because of an obscure sickness, and the burial chamber he arranged for himself was found in 1799, graveyard number 22 in the Valley of the Rulers. His burial chamber, found by Golo and Dvili, was found vacant and the walls were obliterated by pressure and environmental variables, and his mummy was found in 1881. Ruler Ramses III. He is the second of the 20 rulers of the administration of antiquated Egypt. He in all probability controlled from 1186 to 1155 BC.M. During his rule, political and monetary power declined because of a progression of intrusions and inward financial issues. He was depicted as a fighter pharaoh, because of his solid military procedures. Ramses figured out how to overcome the trespassers known as the peoples of the ocean. He gave his orders for the development of significant storehouses in the sanctuaries of Luxor and Karnak, as well as the funerary sanctuary and authoritative complex in the city of Habu, which is among the biggest and best safeguarded in Egypt. King Ramses IV. Ramses IV or Hakamotare was the third ruler of the 20th dynasty. He was the fifth and youngest son of Ramses III, and he became the crown prince by the 22nd year of his father's reign. He is said to have ruled Egypt either from 1151 BC.M. until 1145 BC.M. or from 1155 BC until 1149 BC.M. It is believed that he was in his 40s when he ascended the throne of Egypt and died 6 years later. King Ramses V. He is the fourth pharaoh of Egypt from the 20th dynasty. He ruled Egypt between 1149 BC.A.D-1145 BC.M. Two of the papyri of his time, the Turin Papyrus and the Wilbur Papyrus, depicted administration and corruption in the age of the Ramesses. Ramses V was buried in Tomb 9 in the Valley of the Kings, prepared by Ramses IV and died before he completed it. It was also used by his successor, King Ramses VI. Many opinions indicate that he died as a young man from smallpox. King Ramses IX. Ramses IX is the grandson of King Ramses III, the eighth of the 20 kings of the dynasty. His 18-year rule enabled him to undertake several initiatives, and his name was found in the Eastern architecture, in Palestine and in the Dakhla oasis. He built a number of important monuments in Heliopolis. The northern wall of the seventh edifice of the Temple of Amonare was also decorated with Karnak. Most of his activities were concentrated on Lower Egypt, where he ruled from the capital of Br Ramses, in the delta, which allowed the priests of Ammonius to extend their control in Upper Egypt. The period of the end of his reign was known for the theft of royal tombs and some private tombs. Queen Amos Nefertari. The 18th dean of the dynasty, whom the ancient Egyptians deified according to their beliefs. She was the wife of King Amos I, the liberator of Egypt and the persecutor of the Hyksos, and the founder of the 18th dynasty, reigned from 1550 to 1525 BC.M. Queen Amos Nefertari played a prominent role in the battle that ended with the expulsion of the invaders from Egypt, and was the first woman in history to hold the post of commander of a full military division, and fought very competently. It is believed that Amos and Nefertari are not from the same father, as Amos appears and has the same color as the Egyptians, while Nefertari appears in black. Nefertari bore 7 sons, 3 sons of whom 2 died, and 4 daughters, 3 of whom died, and the surviving sons are Amenhotep I and the son of Hatep II, who married her brother Amenhotep I. Her tomb was discovered in 1914 at the top of the Valley of the Kings at the northern edge of Dara Abu al-Naga. The 2 kings Setti I, Ramses VI are also transferred.